In this lesson, we're going to be talking about Revit's application menu. And we can find the application menu underneath the big R in the upper left-hand corner of the program. So go ahead and move your mouse up and click on the big R. Under the big R, this is the application menu. And there's a variety of options underneath it. The first option is going to be New. And New is going to allow us to be able to create new Revit projects. Also, this is where we can create new Revit family files, as well as a variety of other different kinds of new Revit content. The application menu also allows us to be able to open up content. So by moving over to Open and just hovering over it, we could then move over and open up a project, open up a Revit family file. Also, we could open up an IFC file. IFC files stand for Industry Foundation Class. And what this allows you to do is if someone else has a different BIM software program other than Revit, they can save their files out as an IFC file, and then you can open them up in Revit as an IFC file. There's the option to be able to save. There's also the ability to be able to save as, which allows you to save your project with the same information but with a different name associated with it. There's Save as Template. Save as Template allows you to save out your Revit project and then be able to use those same settings that you set up inside of your Revit project again and again and again in future projects. You can also do a Save As Library, and then save as your Revit families, groups, and views out onto either your computer or out into a network location. What this allows you to do is be able to reuse that Revit content that you've set up again in future projects. Examples of this would be a custom piece of furniture you may have created inside of your Revit project. Or maybe a custom door schedule or a room finish schedule that you've saved out. These can all be saved out as library files, put out into a network location, and then loaded back into Revit whenever you're going to be doing future projects. There's Export. This allows you to be able to export out your Revit information out to DWG files, DGN files, those same IFC files I was talking about earlier. So if someone is using other different programs other than Revit, they can then be able to utilize this information.
There's an option here for suite workflows.
I currently don't have other Autodesk programs loaded up on this computer, but if I did, I would then be able to select those programs off of the list and be able to directly share from Revit into some of those other programs. Publish. Publish allows you to be able to quickly print off DWF, DWG, DXF, DGN, and SAT files, and then be able to share those out to the Autodesk Buzzsaw site. Print does what it sounds like. Then there's also options down here at the bottom of the screen. And if you choose options, you'll see that you have the ability to be able to choose how long you want to go between being reminded to save, such in this case, it's every 30 minutes. You also have the choice of every 1 hour, every 2 hours, every 4 hours, or never being reminded to save at all. Now, the reason why it reminds you to save instead of automatically saving your Revit files is because some of these Revit files can get to be quite large. So as a result of that, you wouldn't want to be forced to save a 150 meg Revit file after 30 minutes has elapsed. It could just take too long to be able to do. So as a result of that, it'll remind you after 30 minutes, and then whenever you get a good breaking point to save, you'll have the opportunity to be able to do it. There's User Interface. User Interface allows you to change the way certain things display on your screen, such as which tabs are going to show up on your ribbon going across the top of your screen. Also, this is where you can customize your keyboard shortcuts. And if you click on Customize, you'll be able to see some 2-letter combinations. These are 2-letter combinations you can type on your keyboard, and it'll automatically execute the command that 2-letter combination is next to on this list. I'm going to go ahead and click on OK to that. There's double-click options, and if you click on Customize next to double-click options, this is what will happen if you double-click on that kind of object inside of Revit. For instance, if I wanted to double-click on a Revit family, right now it would automatically try to edit that family. But if I didn't want it to edit the family, I could either tell it to do nothing, or I could tell it to edit the type. And editing the type would be able to change specific information associated with that family, without changing the way that the shape of that family would look, for instance. I'm going to go ahead and click on OK to that. A couple other tabs I want to point out here. One is Graphics. Some people like to do invert background in order to be able to give them a black drawing area. I find that a lot of people who have used AutoCAD in the past, which always has had a black drawing area, like to invert their background colors. This is also where you can change some of the other colors that are associated with Revit. Also, there's an option here called File Locations. And if you choose on File Locations, you can set up where all your default content is located at. Whether it's on your computer, whether or not it's on a network location on the server, that information can be changed through here. And all of this was underneath the Options menu. I'm going to click on OK here on the Applications menu. So those are the different options associated with your Applications menu. The ribbon allows us to execute different commands inside of Revit. We can find that ribbon going across the top of our screen. In this case, it's saying wall, door, window, and it's giving us a variety of different commands that we can execute. If we click on one of the different tabs going across the top, such as the Structure tab, we can now see a different variety of commands associated with that particular tab. You could also move over to the Annotate tab, click on the Annotate tab, and see your different annotation tools, which will include your dimensions, your drawing tools, such as line work, arcs, circles. There's the ability to do text, and all these show up as different commands on your ribbon. Now, if we move back over again and select on Architecture to see the Architecture tools, we'll begin to notice there's also different categories on our ribbon. These different categories, they're also called panels, include the Build, Circulation, Model, and they're named after the different tools that happen to be on that particular panel. Since we're talking about panels, I do want to mention that if you want to be able to move a panel to a different location, it is possible to do. All you have to do is highlight over the bar there at the bottom of your screen, left click and hold your mouse button down, and you can drag that panel either to a different location on your ribbon or just somewhere out on your screen and let it sit there so that you have those commands in a more easily available area to be able to click on and execute. If you want to be able to bring that panel back up to your ribbon, all you have to do is move your mouse up, click, hold your mouse button down, drag it back up to the location you'd like to be at, and then when you see that gray area show up, just let go of the button and it'll automatically dock itself back onto that panel. One other thing to know about the ribbon as far as being able to reorganize this different information, if you don't like the location of where one of these is located at, for instance, maybe you'd want Structure in front of Architecture, if that's the case, all you have to do is hold down the Control key on your keyboard, left click and hold down your mouse button on the tab that you want to be able to move over, and then you can drag this over and let go in order to be able to rearrange the tabs on the ribbon. So once again, if you want to be able to move this structure, so in this case it's on the other side of the architecture, all you'd have to do is hold Control down on your keyboard, move your mouse up here, left click, hold the mouse button down and drag it over, and you can drag that over to any place you want along your ribbon. Now on the ribbon, there's a variety of different buttons, and that's actually what we're looking at here. So here you can see I have beam and wall and column. If I highlight here on Architecture and click on the Architecture tab, we have different commands. Now if I highlight over the word door, we can see that the door button highlights. It also gives us this little flyout menu. It first starts off by saying, what does this command do? In this case it says door, adds door to the building model. Then if you highlight over it for about 1 second, it'll automatically pop up an illustration showing what the command does or what it adds. We can illustrate this as well by moving over the word window here, seeing the one window, and then seeing it expand itself out to illustrate how windows work. One thing I do want to mention is based on the resolution of your computer screen, these buttons might be slightly different sizes. In other words, your window button might be the same size as what my door button is. Right now I'm working on a small computer screen at a lower resolution. So as a result of that, you'll find that the ribbon will automatically resize its commands based on the amount of screen real estate that you have available to you. So your window button might be larger, same size as my door button, and that's okay, it executes the same command. Now there are different kinds of buttons available inside of Revit as well. This is just your standard button, and if you would click on door, you'll see it automatically executes the door command. To get out of a command in Revit, all you have to do is hit the escape key on your keyboard. There are two other kinds of buttons though that you need to know about. The first kind of button is going to be called a drop-down button. And you can see that whenever there's this little dark triangle next to a command. If you click on that little dark triangle, you'll get a variety of different commands which are associated with that command. In this case, I'm seeing structural column as well as column architectural. We can see that as well over here where we have stairs. That little down arrow, click on it, and it gives us a variety of different options associated with that command. And once again, this is called the drop-down button. There's also a split button inside the program, and walls is an excellent example of a split button because it has this button and it's split into two different categories. The first picture is activating whatever the default option is, so just drawing a default regular wall. But if you want to be able to pick on the kind of wall that you want to be able to do, you can move down here to where it says wall, and you can select on the word wall. And this will give you a drop-down list of do you want to do architectural walls, structural walls, or different commands related to the wall command. So the ribbon allows you to be able to execute a variety of different commands, which will then have functions inside of Revit. The options bar allows us to control the different options associated with a command. Now the options bar is very easy to miss because it's just this gray bar going across the top of our screen. But when you execute a command that has different options associated with it, we'll be able to do different things with the options bar. In order to be able to see this, let's move our mouse underneath the Architecture tab over the picture of the wall and click on the picture of the wall. Here we'll see that the options bar is now populated with a variety of different options associated with this particular command. For instance, it now has a pull-down menu asking us questions related to the depth or the height of our wall. There's a menu here that's going to allow us to be able to click inside of it, highlight the information, and if we wanted to type in a different height for our wall, we could do it. The options bar also allows us to be able to check or uncheck different options in order to be able to turn on and turn off different functions. So the options bar allows us to be able to change different options associated with individual commands.
Two areas that are vital to you when you're going to be using Revit are the properties and the project browser. Now, one of the things to know about the properties and project browser is that they don't have to be located where they currently are on the screen. If you click on just the title of one of them, you can hold your mouse button down and then you can drag this off and then let go, and you'll see that the properties or the project browser, depending on which one that you selected, can get pulled off. It can then get moved to another spot on the screen. It can go to another monitor if you want. So as a result of that, you can do all of your drawing on one monitor. And if you have a second monitor, the project browser and properties can be over there on the other monitor, just sitting out there in space. Also, if you do like the fact that those two were docked on top of each other the way that they were, I want to point out that there's an interesting thing that can accidentally happen. If you're moving around and you're starting to activate commands up here on the screen, you may accidentally click an X in the upper corner and close one of them down. If one of them ever gets closed down, it's not immediately evident how you get that to be brought back up again. So to get them back, come up here to the View tab, select on User Interface, and then look for the one that does not have a check mark next to it. In this case, it's my project browser, so I'm going to put a check next to it, and we can see that the project browser has come back. If I happen to be working in here again and accidentally close properties, I could do the same thing. Come underneath User Interface and put a check mark next to properties. Virtually everyone who has ever used Revit has accidentally closed one of these down at one time or another and wondered, how do I get these back? And that is the answer. Come up to View, User Interface, and then put a check mark next to the appropriate thing. Finally, I also want to point out that these can both take up the exact same spot on the screen as well. In order to do that, you just select on one of these bars, pull it over so they're sort of directly on top of each other. And when you do that, the project browser and the properties will have tabs down at the bottom of the screen. And you can flip between those two tabs by just clicking on either properties or the project browser tab. So you can have them either on or off by clicking on the little X's. If you want to turn them back on again, you can come over here to the user interface and put a check mark next to them. And if you want to have them docked on top of each other, which is the way that I usually prefer to work, then you can drag them directly on top of each other, let go of your mouse button, and then the project browser and then the properties buttons will be down here at the bottom of the screen, and then you can just click on the appropriate tab to execute the appropriate tools over on the side.
The project browser in Revit allows us to be able to categorize and organize the different views that we have in our Revit project. In order to understand this better, move your mouse over here to your project browser. And there's a good chance you'll see up at the very top of the project browser a category called Views. Now, if all these views aren't showing up the way that we're looking at them on the screen right now, I do want to point out that if you select on the little plus sign that would show up there, it'll expand these different categories out. If you still have any of these categories closed down, such as floor plan views for instance, if you select on the little plus next to the floor plan views, it'll expand that category out. Now, like you've seen me doing here, perhaps maybe you have a category of different kinds of views that you don't want to be able to see. For instance, if I'm doing my construction documents, I might not want to see all my different 3D views, or I might not want to be able to see all my different renderings open on the screen. In order to be able to close the titles for these views down, it's just a matter of selecting on the little minus sign next to the title, and it'll automatically close that particular category down, so you're not having to sort through hundreds of different views as you're doing your construction documents. As we can see here, you can scroll up and scroll down by clicking on the little bar here at the side, and then holding your mouse button down in order to be able to drag it up and drag it down. We can also click on the arrows in order to be able to have it go up or have it go down. One other thing that you can do, as long as you've clicked in somewhere inside of the project browser, is you can use the wheel on your wheel mouse in order to be able to scroll up or scroll down inside the project browser. In order to be able to open the views under the project browser, double click where it has one of the levels. In this case, I'm going to do level 1 underneath floor plans, and we'll see that view will open up in your drawing window. You can do the same thing on any of these other categories. For instance, I'm going to double click underneath elevations, building elevation. I'm going to double click very quickly on the word south. And now we can see our south elevation view of our building. Doing the same thing, we can do this with schedules. I'm going to double click with planning schedule. This is one of the schedules that's inside the project, as well as with our sheets. And by double clicking the A001 title sheet underneath the sheets category, we'll see the original view that we had open. One other thing that you can do with the project browser, other than just opening these views over here on the side, is that you can move your mouse over here and just click where it has the words view and all. Then if you right click, there's an option there for browser organization. Select on browser organization. Then by putting a check mark in any of these different categories, we can put these in order by discipline, by those views that are not currently placed onto a sheet, so they're not currently in our construction documents, by phase, so existing, new construction, and demolition, and type and discipline, which is very similar to discipline. I will point out that if we click on discipline and select on OK, that our project browser will automatically organize based on those categories. If we'd had structural drawings, MEP drawings, we'd see those categories underneath here. Right now, we just have our architectural plans and what's considered our coordination plans, which combine the information from our mechanical, structural, and architectural all in the one view. And that's how that's currently organized underneath the project browser. Now, if we want to be able to bring that back, highlight where views and discipline is at, right-click again, select on project or browser organization, and then change this back to all, and click on OK. And this will once again reorganize these so it's no longer underneath the particular discipline, but it's back to just all of our floor plan views, all of our 3D views, all of our elevation views, etc. So the purpose of the project browser is to be able to quickly organize and view all the data which is associated with our project. The viewing and drawing area in Revit is this area right in the center of our screen that allows us to see each of our individual Revit views. In this case, we have the level 1 first floor plan open. In order to be able to tell that it's just one individual view, move your mouse up into the upper right-hand side of the screen and hover over this little double box that shows up here, and now select on it. By doing this, it'll begin to minimize this down on your screen, and we can tell that this is an individual viewport of our Revit database, or in this case, of the level 1 first floor view. If you want to be able to move it around on your screen, click and hold the mouse button down on the bar going across the top, and you'll notice that you can drag this from left to right or up and down on your screen. And technically, this big gray area is the background for your viewing and drawing area. Now let's move over here to the left-hand side and double-click on Level 2. As we can see, this opens up a different view inside of the viewing and drawing area. It too has its own dimensions and properties associated with it. Some of these properties are controlled by the View Control Bar, which is where the scale and different view property buttons are located at the bottom of your screen. You'll notice that each of these different views, in this case the Level 1 and Level 2, each has its own individual view control bar with different settings that can be set in order to be able to adjust the way that the view looks. Also, each one of these views has these 3 buttons here at the top of the screen. If I wanted to be able to maximize one of these views in particular, select on the middle button, and it'll maximize out that view that you selected for the middle button. If you do the same thing again, it'll minimize it down so that we can now see both of our views. If we want to be able to activate one view over the top of the other view, move your mouse to the other view and click on the heading for that one. And you can now see that this one becomes the active drawing area and moves to the foreground of the drawing area where we're going to be doing our manipulation. If we want to be able to resize these windows, we can. Simply move your mouse over to the edge and it'll turn into a little double arrow. When you see this double arrow there at the edge of your view, click and hold your left mouse button down and then move the mouse from side to side. This is going to allow you to resize your window on the screen. So if we wanted to be able to have one window up in this corner, another window over on this corner, it's just a matter of clicking and holding your mouse button down and dragging it over in order to be able to resize these windows to the size that you'd like them to be. If you'd like to minimize these windows down so that they're no longer open, as far as being able to actually see the content inside of them, but you still want them open on your screen, move your mouse up here to the bar going across the top, highlight where this dash is at, and then select. You'll see that the view is still open, but it's been minimized all the way down and to the left-hand side of your drawing area. If we'd like this to be maximized back up again, you can do the same thing. Click in the same spot, but instead of a dash, you'll see 2 little boxes on top of each other, and this will expand it back out again. Also, if you click on the red X that's associated with the view, we can see that that will close the individual view down. Also, if we want to be able to expand this view out, you can once again move your mouse over, select on the middle button, which you can see is maximize, and it'll expand this out. So the viewing and drawing area, it contains each of the individual Revit views. Each of these Revit views has its own set of properties which can allow manipulation of that particular view. The Properties palette controls the individual properties and displays the individual properties of different things inside of a Revit project environment. Now the Properties palette itself is located over here at the side, and it has 3 distinct different areas associated with it. The bar going across the top is called the Type Selector List. The second part is directly below the Type Selector List, and this is your Instance Properties. The third spot, technically not on this bar, but the button to get to it is called Edit Type. And Edit Type allows you to get to the type properties of an individual object. Now, let's go ahead and review what each one of these does and how it affects your Revit model. To do this, I'd like to change a couple of the doors that are inside of our bathroom currently. And we can find that bathroom right in this area over here between the blue and the green colors. Our best bet's to be able to zoom in on that area. So simply somewhere out here in the white area, click once. That activates the view. Move your cursor so it's right in the area where that bathroom is located at. And now move the wheel on your mouse, just spin it up. And that will allow you to zoom in on the bathroom area. If you'd like to see it centered a little bit better on the screen, simply hold the wheel down on the mouse and then move the mouse just a little bit in order to be able to center the bathroom a little bit better on your screen. Now we can see that there's 2 doors that lead either in or out of the bathroom. One is door number 103 and the other is door number 104. Now these are the exact same type of door, so they share the exact same structural properties as well as sizes, but they have different numbers. So this is door 103 and door number 104. Now we can see what the type properties of these doors are by selecting on the door itself and taking a look over here at the Type Selector List. The Type Selector List is really a pull-down menu. And if you click where this door shows up, we can now see the different types of doors which are loaded into our project. This particular project only has 3 different types of doors loaded into it. And the reason why this is called the type selector list is you can select which type of door that you want to use inside of your project off of the list. In this case, just to show the difference, move your mouse down and select on the numbers underneath M double flush. This is going to give us a double door that's going to be leading into the bathroom. As we can see, this door is way too wide. It's not going to fit into the bathroom. But we can see that we now have that double door type placed here inside of our wall. Now let's go ahead and change this back to the original type that it was. So once again, come over to the type selector list and choose on the numbers 800 by 2100. And this will change it back to that type of door. So the rule of thumb of the type selector list is it's going to allow you to be able to change a door or any kind of object inside of Revit from that type of object or that size of object to a different size or a different type. Directly underneath the type selector list, you have your instance properties. Your instance properties will only affect that specific thing that you have selected. In this case, I have a door selected and it has a mark number or a door number called 103. If we would change to be 199, you'll notice it won't immediately apply it underneath the view, but if you click on either apply or just move your cursor into the view, that door will become door number 199. So just this instance of this type of door has become door number 199. You notice it didn't change this door down here. Go ahead and move your mouse back over here to the mark and change it back to 103. Now we can see it's changed that information back to door number 103, but perhaps we wanted to be able to change both of these doors and their properties simultaneously. This is how you can do it. Move your cursor up and select on Edit Type. Once Edit Type is up, these are the type properties of the door. That means that each of these doors have this type of property associated with it. And even though only one of these doors is highlighted, because they're the exact same type of door, and this is the type properties, it's going to make the change to both doors. In this case, move down here to where it has width, and let's shrink these doors down, and we should see the doors get smaller on the screen. So instead of width being 800, change this down to a width of being a rather small 600. And then click on the Apply button in the lower right-hand side of the dialog box. We can now see that the door has in fact shrunk in both locations. Do the same thing again, except bring this back up to the 800 it was originally. And once again, click on Apply. Notice how both doors got bigger? It's because for this type of door, the properties changed, and every place this type of door throughout the entire project was located at, it's now changed these properties for that type of door. Go ahead and click on OK to this. So it's important to remember what the properties allow you to do. One is it will list what the properties of the objects that you currently have selected are. Also, each area has its own function. The type selector list will allow you to choose which type of door is placed or which type of object is placed in that location. The instance property portion will allow you to change the properties specific to that one kind of object. In this case, it allowed us to change the door number in one location. And the type properties, which is located underneath Edit Type, will universally change the properties of that type of object throughout the entire project. By default in Revit, there's a bar right next to the big R, and it's called the Quick Access Toolbar. Now it's called the Quick Access Toolbar because it allows quick access to frequently used commands inside of the program. These commands we're seeing going across the top of the screen are currently showing up as being individual buttons. And if we would click on any of these different buttons, it would automatically execute that particular command. Depending on the resolution of your screen, this bar will continue on across the top of your screen, or you may get a couple of double arrows. If you have the double arrows, select on it like I'm selecting on mine, and you will see the rest of the Quick Access Toolbar. Over at the very right of the Quick Access Toolbar, you'll see a down arrow. This down arrow allows you to be able to do different customizations to this particular toolbar. So if you select on the down arrow, here we can see all the different commands that by default are on the toolbar. And in this case, we're going to remove this command right here, which is the measure command. So simply move down the toolbar and clear the check mark next to the measure. You'll notice that the measure tool no longer shows up on the Quick Access Toolbar. Once again, move over there to the arrow pointing down
And let's bring the measure tool back by clicking on the word measure. And we can see that tool is now back on the toolbar. One of the things that a lot of people like to do is add their own commands to the quick access toolbar. After all, the whole purpose behind having it up there is being able to add commands to it so you have quick access to those commands anytime that you need it. In order to be able to add a command, the easiest way is to find it on the ribbon, such as the wall command, right-click when you get to that command, and select Add to Quick Access Toolbar. If you look then up at your Quick Access Toolbar, you'll see that command up on the Quick Access Toolbar. It also will have the little down arrow next to it with all the different kinds of wall commands, just like the original wall tool did on the ribbon inside of Revit. If you no longer want to have that tool available to you, move over the top of it again, right-click on it, this time inside of the Quick Access Toolbar, and just tell it, Remove from Quick Access Toolbar. A few other things that show up though when you do the right-click include Add Separator, which adds this line in order to be able to have separation between the commands so that the different commands are easier to find. There's also Customize the Quick Access Toolbar, which brings up a menu structure with these exact same commands that we're seeing with the right-click, and we'll do this here in just a moment, as well as Show Quick Access Toolbar below the ribbon. You notice that now it's below Revit's ribbon, so that if you're going to be working inside the program, you don't have to go all the way up to the top of the screen to find your commands. You can just move right up to here, select on whichever command you want to be able to execute, and it'll automatically execute it down below. If you want to be able to move it back up again, you go through the same process, except you tell it to show it above the ribbon, and it'll bring it back up to the top of your screen. As far as being able to customize it from a separate menu, come to that down arrow right there, and we're going to see that there's an option to customize the Quick Access Toolbar. This is where all those different commands are available again, except this time it's going to be on this menu. If I wanted to be able to remove something, such as that wall which I never officially got rid of, I can highlight over the wall tool, and then click on the red X in order to be able to remove it. We could move these around by simply highlighting on the command and then clicking on the arrows, move the commands up, or be able to move the commands down. I'm next going to select OK in order to be able to get myself out of the editing of the QAT, or the Quick Access Toolbar. So the Quick Access Toolbar is a quick and easy way to be able to access your different commands inside of Revit. Located in the lower left-hand side of the screen, there's a gray bar that by default will say click to select, tap for alternatives, and have some other text. That's called Revit's status bar, and what it does is it gives you the current status of the command that you're currently in. For instance, if you come up to the top of the screen, underneath the Architecture tab and select on the Wall command, move your cursor out toward the drawing area without clicking. One of the things you'll notice is it'll say either extension of walls or extension of grid or click to enter wall start point. What it's doing is it's trying to give you feedback based on the command that you're currently in. In this case, it's saying click to enter the wall start point, which means it wants you to click the first location where that wall should start on the screen. If we hit escape a couple of times, we can get out of the command, and this time come up to the window command, and once again, move your mouse down into the drawing area. It'll tell you to click on wall to place window, and it'll give you some more information. This is the status of that particular command. So the function of the status bar is to give you an up-to-date status of the command that you're currently in so that you know what the next steps are in the placement process of whatever it is you're trying to execute. There are two main ways inside of Revit to be able to zoom around on your screen and be able to adjust the way that your view displays. The first way is to use the wheel on your mouse. The second way is to use the navigation bar over here on the right-hand side. Let's start off by using the wheel on our mouse, and it's probably going to be the way that you go about doing this the most. Start by just clicking somewhere on your screen. This activates the view so the view knows this is the view you want to be able to zoom in and out of. Next, move your mouse until the little arrow shows up over some portion of the building you want to be able to zoom in on. In this case, I'm going to point my mouse over these tables here on the screen. Now spin the wheel forward, and you'll zoom in exactly where your mouse is located at. Roll the wheel back, and you'll be zooming out. If I wanted to now see the furniture down in this part of our building, Once the cursor is over the top of it, spin the wheel on the mouse to zoom in, and then spin the wheel to zoom back out. If you want to have this all get centered on the screen, or if you're currently zoomed in like this, you want to be able to see the full extent of the view, simply move your mouse out into sort of a blank area of the screen and then quickly double-click the wheel on the mouse. By double-clicking the wheel, it'll automatically execute the Zoom Extents command, and it will take you out to the farthest out extents of the view. The next way that you can move around and zoom around inside of the program is by using the navigation bar. And the navigation bar and its tools show up over here on the side. By default, when you first start out, there's a good chance it's going to give you this zoom tool, and you'll see what looks like a little magnifying glass in a box. But I want to point out there's an arrow underneath that, and it continues to highlight the entire button if you go over the top of it. We'll click on the little down arrow right there, and you'll see a variety of different commands. There's zoom region, zoom out, zoom the fit, zoom all the fit, zoom sheet, as well as previous pan and zoom. Some of the ones you're most likely to use are going to include the zoom the fit, which if I click now, you're not going to really see much of a difference. And the reason is, when we did the double click on the wheel, the zoom in, that's exactly what this command does. So if I select on zoom the fit, you can see it zooms itself in, and now it's fitting all this information on the screen. Zoom all the fit does almost the exact same thing. There's zoom out 2 times. This takes you out 2 times farther than where you were before. There's zoom in region. This allows you to click once, hold your mouse button down, and sort of drag a box around your view. And wherever you let go of the button, that's where it's going to zoom into. So for instance, maybe I'd want to zoom in where these tables are located at. If I executed that zoom in region command, I click once where I want to start the actual zoom. Let me go ahead and click on the command just to make sure that it's activated. Click once, zoom around the area that you want to be able to zoom in on, let go of the mouse button, and then you'll see that you can zoom in to that area. If I want to be able to zoom back out again, remember I can do zoom all the fit, and it'll automatically take me right back out again. Finally, there's an option here that says previous pan and zoom, and if you select on that, it'll take you back to the last place that you zoomed into. And you can continue to click that, and it'll continue to remember each of those previous steps that you had just done. I think in the end, what you're going to find is that you're going to very rarely actually use these commands. You're going to be much more likely to just spin the wheel on your mouse in order to be able to zoom in and zoom out from somewhere. You'll also get used to double clicking on the wheel on the mouse in order to be able to zoom in and zoom out. That being said though, these tools underneath the navigation bar will help you out, particularly in the early going when you're still learning how to double click, create windows, and be able to just do the basic functionality of zooming in and out of your Revit project environment. So the different ways to go about zooming once again are by coming over here and doing it on the navigation bar, or by simply using the wheel on your mouse and spinning the wheel forward to zoom in and spinning the wheel again to zoom out.